secret of a broken mirror. Raindrops were falling on the ceiling like an old melody. Emily was sitting alone in her grandfather's old Victorian house. A large broken mirror in the corner caught her attention. There were strange cuts on the edge of the mirror, as if someone had deliberately injured it. When she touched it, a cold shiver ran through her body. There was her reflection on the mirror's hazy surface, but the reflection stood slightly away from her face, with a terrible smile. Emily's breath caught. She stepped back, but the reflection remained there, smiling. Suddenly, the fog began to spread from inside the mirror. Shadows began to move in the fog, and a hazy face emerged. The face was that of her late grandmother, but there was not a single glimmer of life in the eyes, only darkness. A voice echoed, as if the mirror itself was speaking. "The secret you are seeking will imprison you here." Emily's heart began to beat faster. She turned to leave the mirror behind, but the door to the room was gone. Every wall was now covered in the same mirror, and dozens of her reflections stared back at her in each. One of the reflections reached out and tried to climb out of the glass. Emily screamed and closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she was in a strange room, with gray walls, a rotten floor, and the same broken mirror in the middle. Her reflection looked at her and whispered, "Now you are inside the mirror, and I am outside." Before she could do anything, the mirror stepped into the light, and Emily's body came under its control. Now, in the outside world, there was a new Emily, who was actually a shadow. And the real Emily? She was imprisoned on the other side of the mirror, forever. The next day, the villagers were saying that Emily now had a strange, cold smile on her face, and that in her room, in the corner, the same broken mirror still stood, waiting for the next grave in the woods. Have you ever heard of a place where nature itself is afraid to speak? Where the wind stops, the birds fall silent, and a secret lies hidden beneath the ground that has not been revealed to anyone for centuries. In northern New Hampshire, the people of the town of Milford whisper about one such place, Red Hollow Woods. This forest leaves a faint wave of fear even during the day, but as soon as the sun sets, the place takes on its true form. People say there is a grave here with no name on it, no history, no prayer, just a stone, and under it a body that has never slept peacefully. I have seen many strange things in my life, but what happened that night was different from all of them. I have thought this story was a joke since I was a child. My friend Ben thought the same thing. Ben had always been an adventurer, climbing mountains, exploring abandoned buildings, and doing all the things that ordinary people shy away from. One cool October evening, the two of us decided to head into Red Hollow, to the spot marked with an X on an old map. It was said to be the site of an unmarked grave. We packed a flashlight, water, and a little food in our backpacks. We reached the edge of the forest at 6 in the evening. The sun was slowly disappearing behind the trees, and a light mist was hanging over the sky. As we entered the forest, a strange silence enveloped us. No breeze, no rustling of leaves, just a stifled stillness, as if the forest were holding its breath and watching us. After about half an hour of walking, we had to change our path and enter the dense trees. The light here was even dimmer. With every step, the rustle of dry leaves seemed to synchronize with the beating of our hearts. Ben kept looking at the map and saying, "We're close, so close." Finally, we came to an open area. There was a slight depression in the ground, and in the middle of it stood a piece of stone. There was no name on it, no inscription, just some scratches, as if someone had made a mark with a nail or a sharp bone. The ground around the stone was very dry, as if it hadn't rained for years. "Let's dig a little and see if we can find an old coffin," Ben said. "That's not good," I said. "The people here say that whoever disturbs this grave will never be the same again." He laughed. "Stories are stories, don't be afraid." He started digging. At first it was simple, but as he dug deeper, the air began to cool. My breath began to turn into white mist. I looked around, the mist drifting down from the trees around us. Then suddenly, there was that voice, a deep, broken whisper, as if someone was speaking from beneath the earth. "This is my home." Ben looked up, a glint of fear in his eyes, but he wasn't going to stop. The soil began to shake, as if someone was pushing from within. Then a black, bony hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Ben's wrist. Its grip was as cold as ice, as if cold iron had penetrated flesh. Ben screamed, and I pulled with all my might. The ground was shaking rapidly. The fog was thickening, and it seemed as if the entire forest had awakened. Eventually, we both ran away from the grave. I looked back, and the grave had filled back up with dirt, as if nothing had happened. But Ben's wrist still bore the blue marks, fingerprints, as if someone had left them on purpose. Ben changed after that night. He never goes out at night, always keeps the curtains on the windows closed, and is startled at the sound of someone's footsteps. And I hear the same whisper every night, very close, coming from under my bed. "You've seen my house. Now you have to come back." The mysterious car that started driving itself. Mark Denver, a resident of a small town in New Hampshire, was a car enthusiast. Buying, restoring, and renovating old cars was both his hobby and his source of income. One day he saw an ad on Facebook Marketplace. 1971 Chevrolet Impala. Good condition, low price, must sell now. The price was unusually low. Mark immediately called the seller. An old voice came on the phone who said hesitantly, "If you want this car, just come." No negotiation. When Mark arrived, the car was parked outside an old, deserted farmhouse. The paint was chipped, the glass was dusty, but the car had a strange appeal. The seller was a frail old man who handed Mark the keys without much conversation. As he reached for the keys, a cold sensation ran through Mark's hand, as if he were touching ice rather than metal. He ignored her, laughing. As soon as Mark started the car on his way back, the sound of the engine was surprisingly soft. But after driving a little distance, he realized that his feet were not even pressing the accelerator, yet the car was accelerating on its own. He tried to apply the brakes, and the car stopped. But at that moment, the radio suddenly turned on. A soft, old-fashioned voice came out of it. "You shouldn't have come here." Mark parked the car in the garage, but in the middle of the night he heard the engine running from outside. He came out startled, but the car was locked, the keys in his pocket. When he opened the garage door in the morning, he saw that the car had moved 2 feet forward from its place. All this piqued Mark's curiosity. He began researching old newspapers. He found that in 1971, the same model car had been in an accident in which a young couple had been killed. Witnesses said the car had sped up before the crash, as if the driver was out of control. And the seller was the father of the girl who had died in the crash. One night, Mark decided to test drive the car on a deserted highway. As he drove, it sped up. The steering became stiff. The brakes failed. The same voice came over the radio again. "Take us home." The car turned straight for the old farmhouse. It stopped in front of the gate, and the engine cut out. Mark got out with shaking hands and ran away. The next day, he sold the car. He didn't tell the buyer anything, but he knew the story wasn't over. People still say that sometimes at night, the old 71 Impala would drive down the road on its own, and there would be no one inside, except for a dim shadow sitting in the driver's seat.